Hi, my name is Ruth Medd. I'm the Executive Chair of Women on Boards, and welcome everyone. This is my two-weekly review of vacancies on the WOB Vacancies board, where I try and draw out themes and topics of interest to you. So this week I've got two topics, sport and starter paid roles. But before I talk about these, just a reminder, there were 28 new vacancies this week on the Australian board and something like 60 on the UK board. So all up, there's 400 or 500 vacancies for you to consider applying for. Okay, sport. The Winter Olympics are on. I found some of it quite fascinating. I think probably my highlight is the short course speed skating, where basically everybody falls over, and even if you fall over, you might get advanced to the next round, which I found quite entertaining. But enough of that. WOB is full of people who are interested in sport. Sports boards are basically like joining a small business or a small-ish not-for-profit. Generally speaking, they've got governance challenges because their history is coming from a place where the sport was important, not worrying too much about governance. The Australian Sports Commission, now called Sports Australia, has spent a lot of time trying to encourage national sporting organisations, which they fund, to improve their governance. So generally speaking, sports boards are on the lookout for people who know a bit about governance, but also are clearly interested in the sport. There's no point going to a meeting each month or each 2 months where you sit and talk about the latest results in, for example, the curling or other sport that you may not have any interest in. So pick one that you're interested in. And my other tip is pick one that perhaps wins medals or gets prominence in the public arena, because they tend to get funded better. And when you're funded better, you can do a better job of governance and developing the sport. So that's my couple of tips there. So this fortnight, we've got some really quite eclectic sports boards. You have to have a sense of humour with some of these. So first up, 25058, the Victorian Billiards and Snooker Association. Right, closes on the 1st of April. Remarkably, they're looking for a treasurer and are willing to pay that person. In my view, a fairly sensible approach. So this would be an excellent starter board for all of us who are CPAs or CAs who are in the sort of more junior elements of our career and are looking for a way to make a contribution. Now, billiards and snooker is actually quite interesting. I spent my university years playing billiards and snooker, so don't laugh too much about the obscurity of it. There's lots of very enthusiastic billiards and snooker players around. Next up, a bit more conventional, 25052, Tennis New South Wales. Closes on the 27th of February. Tennis is, generally speaking, well funded, well supported, and apart from its occasional difficulties in the media, is a pretty interesting sport. Globally, it's pervasive. So Tennis New South Wales, they're looking for accounting, facilities management, information technology and systems, and marketing. Once again, expenses are paid here, and that's typical of sports boards. You don't tend to get paid a director's fee, but you do get expenses. And remember, somebody has to go to the Olympics, or in fact, Wimbledon. Next up, gymnastics. 25014, Gymnastics Victoria, and there's also Gymnastics New South Wales on the jobs board. So Gymnastics Victoria closes on the 20th of Feb, and they quite typically are looking for a chair of their finance and risk committee. Now, my daughter did gymnastics at school until she discovered she didn't really have the flexibility, etc., but was particularly strong. And so we've probably all got some relationship with gymnastics in the past. So they're looking for accounting, compliance, risk management, and strategy. So a nice way to contribute to a sport that supports young women. So if you're interested, give it a go in either Victoria or New South Wales. Next up, 25001, Artistic Swimming Australia. This, of course, used to be called synchronized swimming. Closes on the 15th of Feb, so you need to get a shuffle on with this one. They are looking for proven experience and technical expertise in artistic swimming. Now, there possibly are not a whole lot of us that fulfill that characteristic or that requirement, but I've added it into my remarks this week because it's interesting that Artistic Swimming Australia is supported privately by a supporter, and in fact it's Gina Reinhardt. She supports a whole range of water-based type sports and funds our athletes who aspire to be Olympians. So in that sense, it's quite an interesting board, and one might imagine it'll get a bit more prominence into the future. Okay, next up, 24904, Athletics Australia. Now this is one of the big national sporting organisations. Clearly, athletics we don't do as well as sports like swimming or sailing, but they're an important element of the sporting arena. Closes on the 18th of February. Once again, expenses paid. They're looking for finance, digital technology strategy, commercialisation, government relationships, and sport. Now you see a theme going through these sporting bodies. They're all, I am sure, desperately trying to interact with their members in a more modern way and need some expertise to assist them doing that. And finally, I have 25132, Australian Calisthenic Foundation Limited. Closes on the 4th of March. And once again, they're looking for risk management, information technology, marketing and strategy. So that's about 6 or 7 sporting bodies. If you're interested and want to choose a sporting body as your unpaid give back sport, I can highly recommend them. And it's summer and we're sports mad, I hope. So I am. So I hope you enjoyed those. Now, second topic for today is starter paid roles. My view is that you should always aim for a paid role if at all possible. Now, some of us can't do that because of the jobs we hold, etc. But a starter paid role is a good place to start your board career if in fact you aspire to have a board career on a sort of more or less full-time basis into the future. And we've got some stalwarts to begin with. AHPRA, the Australian Health Practitioners Regulatory Authority, is basically a bit of a business. That's 15 of these boards, national boards, and then they've got state boards underneath them. They pay their directors, and basically they're there to regulate the allied health and health professions. So they register, deregister members, and they think about education for members of their profession. So there's 2 on the board at the moment. The first one, 24856, I mentioned in my last recording, but I thought I'd just mention it again. They're the territory boards of the Medical Board of Australia, closes on the 27th of Feb, and they're looking for community members. That's people who know something about public administration, essentially, and clearly have an interest in the subject matter. But the new one that came up just a few days ago is 25131, which is a range of national boards, closes on the 13th of March, and they're looking for allied health professions, so members of the profession for the particular board. They're looking for consumer representatives, and that's all about understanding community responses to health professions and understanding something about public administration, as I mentioned before. So there's a whole raft of them. There's the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health practice, there's occupational therapy, optometry, Chinese medicine, osteopathy, medical radiation, paramedicine, nursing and midwifery, and psychology. So the AHPRA have got a semi-decent website, and I've provided the link in the posting. So you click onto the link, have a look at the organisation you're interested in, put in an application, and there's a standard email address that you applied for, and highly, highly recommended for a starter paid board. Okay, I thought I'd just do a couple of other health related boards that in fact pay their directors also. So I've got 25135, the Australian Physiotherapy Association, looking for independent directors, closes on the 21st of Feb, and they are looking for audit, finance, governance, innovation and strategy. The typical skill sets that organisations look for when they say we need some independent directors. They clearly have more than enough physiotherapists, and they need people who've got professional governance skills. So that's that one. And then I've got 25013, which is the North Richmond Community Health. Closes on the 18th of February. They're actually looking for a company secretary. But if you're from the sort of background where you've had a bit of experience with company secretaries or reporting to boards, etc., this is not a bad way to get a board role, because company secretaries in law have very similar responsibilities to directors, and that means responsibilities and liabilities. And it's a good way to make a contribution to an organisation. And if you're efficient about it, you can introduce modern board secretarial software to the organisation and make a real impact. So that's 25013, closes on the 18th of Feb. That's someone from Victoria, I imagine, is wanted for that board, although they do say they have their meetings online some of the time. Okay, so that's my selection of items for this month, which cover sport and starter paid roles. So get your pencils out, everyone, and start applying. And my tips for February is the Meet the Headhunters session. The first of these for the year starts on the 23rd of March. It's via Zoom. I've got Mick Hay organised so far, and I'm looking for a director from New Zealand. That should be a very interesting session, particularly if you're interested in agri-business, agri-startups, things like that, and also perhaps boards in New Zealand where they may be looking for an Australian director or a local New Zealand director. So hopefully all our New Zealand members can join into that one. And also, it's really, really important to have a good cover letter. And there's a pro forma guide of how to write a good cover letter. And it's in the resources section on the website under articles and podcasts. And I would recommend you have a look at that if you're struggling with putting together a decent cover letter. So there we go. That's the vacancies for the middle of February. I hope you enjoyed listening to my list for this fortnight, which in fact covers sport and starter board roles. So keep healthy, keep safe, and look after our fellow citizens. Okay, thank you.